Good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome to another. Oh, have I scratched my face? You see, this is the first time I really look at myself in the morning, so I never know. Have a bit of a, I've bothered to put a bit of water on my hair this morning, but looks like I've scratched my face, doesn't it? I hate it when that happens. Have you ever done that when you scratch your face in bed or something, and then you wake up, you've got a massive scratch on your face? Well. Yeah, we're gonna get into some market segmentation today. I think it's going. I'm surprised at how well this is going. I had some really nice emails off people about enjoying it. I've had emails from parents. I've had emails from students. I've had emails from people who aren't in my class. Saying that they've enjoyed it and that they're hoping that it continues and stuff. So I will continue as long as I physically can in terms of these, live streams and stuff like that. And once we've done the spec, then the world's our oyster, isn't it? So thank you very much for continuing on with me and appreciating the fact that. Whilst this is not the best way of doing it, ideally we would be in a classroom. It's also hopefully a very useful thing for you. To just give you something a little bit every day. That's good enough, isn't it? A little bit every day. And all right, it's difficult to do maybe your exam prep, although we are going to do an exam question today. But you know what? Get that solid foundation, get that knowledge down, and then that understanding of things, and if you can get that down, then that's half the battle, isn't it? So I think that's all. Thank you very much for joining me, and let's get straight to it. What do I press first? I'm not woken up yet. So we're going to do some market segmentation today and sort of understand what it is. Now, it doesn't seem that long ago since we've done market segmentation, and I think it's because I don't know whether it genuinely is because we've done it recently, but I think it's because I've been doing some videos separate to these, and I was talking about sort of choosing your markets and choosing what things you do. I've not released it yet, but I will do, I think it's just on my mind because I've been talking about market segmentation so much. So yeah, let's get onto them. So what we're going to look at today is explain what is meant by market segmentation, explain how markets are segmented, explain the importance and impact of segmentation to a business and its customers. So we'll talk about stakeholders as we always do. We'll talk about what it is and things like that. All right. So first things first, what characteristics then do target markets for the following products have in common? Now, usually we would spend a little bit of time in class, everybody gets together, goes through these, but as we are separated, we will do it individually. So what characteristics do the target markets for these have in common? We've got Aldi, we've got Preston North End Football Club, we've got the Grand C-Max, I think it is. Looks like the Grand C-Max, that. For Grand C-Max and the Xbox One and Special K. So, feel free to pause the stream, feel free to have a think, but it's okay. Well, let's have a chat. Let's go through them together. So, first of all, what would you expect of the main characteristics of someone who were to shop at Aldi? Well, I think you can segment them into a couple of different areas, people who shop at Aldi, but the main thing that would bring people who shop at Aldi together would be price. So it might be people from a lower socioeconomic group, and what I mean by that is someone who earn less. Socioeconomic group is your sort of grouping that you sit in of how much money you make. So I would expect that people who shop at Aldi would probably be lower on the socioeconomic grouping than other people, if that makes sense. And purely because it's cheaper. So that's the main feature of why they're going to shop there, is because it's cheaper. I think Aldi have really upped the game recently, though, in terms of it used to be a bit of a joke if you shopped at Aldi, but now it's just one of those things. People don't really care. I think in comparison to Lidl, Lidl have really upped the game more than Aldi. And we'll talk about that, why they're doing that. But essentially it's because they're going for a different segment, isn't it? What about Preston North End Football Club? Well, Preston North End Football Club are going for kind of like a geographic segmentation, aren't they? And what I mean by that is how sort of a place where people come from. That's how they're segmenting their market. That's how they're choosing who to market their goods at. Because it tends to be, as I said, although I'm not into sports and stuff, it tends to be that that if you're into a football team, it tends to be the team that's from where you're from. That's what a lot of people are into, isn't it? I'm not saying everybody, but a good amount of people are into the football club. So perhaps because it's Preston, Northwest England, then Northwest England would be the best place for to segment people from that. But also you've got the segmentation of children and adults for that one. So you've got an age demographic difference as well, haven't you? Because you've got kids who are buying the kits and stuff like that. You've got the adults who maybe were kids, we were all kids once and became the adults who are now buying kit and stuff from them. You'll obviously have the enthusiasts and stuff. What about the Ford Grand C-Max here? So we've got this one. Well, for this one, we're looking at what characteristics. The characteristic for these ones is families, isn't it? It's a few different things. It could be potentially a disabled person. That could be something, couldn't it? It could be to give them access to things like that. I don't think it's specifically one. I think you can get better cars for disabled people than this. Ones that you can fit what's it called in, like a wheelchair and things like that. But that would be good because you've got a little bit more space. People who need space for a big boot and stuff like that. But the main characteristics for this one's probably the family aspect, isn't it? And people who want a decent price, because Ford isn't absolutely luxury, but it's a decent one. I have two Ford cars and I really love them. Fantastic bits of kit. Xbox One. So what is it that the demographic for them? What the characteristics that bring these people together? Well, I'd say for Xbox One, who do you think the average consumer is? Tends to be male, because there's this connection between males and gaming and stuff like that. I don't think it's as true as it used to be, but I still think the average consumer probably of a gamer is men, and you can tell by the way they advertise it. It's very male dominated. It's very centered on men, and it'd be an interesting one to see what the data would be to back that up now. But I think at this moment in time, you've definitely got that. And what about the special care? Well, the special care is obviously aimed at people who are a little bit more health conscious, perhaps older. You can tell, and women as well more than men, because you can see on the adverts how they advertise to women. Tends to be because they're more bothered about their sizes, a little bit more bothered about keeping themselves healthy than men are, and things like that. So obviously, what you'll notice I'm doing already today is using sort of a lot of what's the word? It's too early for me. This, I'm using sort of. Oh, what's that? What's the word? It means that if anyone can write it in, please. I know that you're watching because it's gonna kill me. Where we presuppose about something. Like we pretend that we know, like we're going into it with a use the most obvious thing about the person. All guys like football. It's what's that word? Oh, it's gonna kill me. Please help me. I don't even know what to check. Someone's going to help me out. I know it's going to pop up in this live chat in a second, isn't it? What's it called? I'm going to have to check. Give me a sec. Just completely got out of my head today, this. Come on, you must know what I mean. Stereotypes. What am I talking about? Is stereotypes, isn't it? I wanted the word stereotype instead, and it completely gone out of my head. So stereotypes, you'll notice I'm using stereotypes, and that's okay. Stereotyping is totally fine in business. It's not because it's in a negative way. We're not stereotyping in a negative way. We're stereotyping to be able to get together a group of consumers, essentially. So it's not something that in business we are particularly worried about. Obviously, we don't want to use it in a negative context, but stereotyping in this regard is very much like that because you're using your target markets, aren't you? Okay, so market segmentation is breaking down a market into subgroups with similar characteristics. A business can target these groups and develop products and services for each of them. A market segment is part of a whole segment which contains groups of buyers with similar characteristics, such as age, income, social class, or attitudes. And we'll talk about these. You break them down into a little bit more. So we mentioned socioeconomic groups and things like that, gender, sexual orientation. There's a range of them, isn't there? And it will depend on the circumstance and the product of what we do with these things, of how we market our products to them. Okay, so rules of segmentation. So the first one that we need to think about is it must be recognisable. So it must be different enough to make producing for that segment worthwhile. So, e.g. housing. Is it worth it to us in terms of market potential, in terms of potential revenue, in terms of potential profit? Is it worth it to us to be specific to that certain bit of a segment? There's no point in you spending loads of time trying to segment your marketing really, really specifically and then realise, oh, wait a minute, I've actually found that this doesn't, these people don't want to buy anything anyway. It's like saying, oh, for housing, if you go with, tiny kids, well, tiny kids aren't going to buy your house, are they? Maybe the parents might, but there's no point in segmenting to a market that has there's no way that it's going to go out any impact on you. Or if you say to maybe an international market when you don't have the ability or the resources to be able to satisfy that market. So again, you'd have to be really specific about it. Here's the cat. It's all going on today, isn't it? First, I can't remember the word stereotype, and there's the cat. Number two, it must have a critical mass. So in terms of producing enough sales value to make the production worthwhile, so two-seater sports cars, we've got to understand that they will have a critical mass in this regard. And what we mean by critical mass is that there is an end to them. The segment isn't infinite. The fact that we're even talking about a segment means that there is only a certain amount of people in that segment, because it's whether it's to do with gender or whether it's to do with race or whether it's to do with geographic location or whatever. Essentially, we're not saying, even if we said all men, it's not a brilliant segment. But if it's a very broad one, but if you were to say all men, there's not an infinite amount of men, is there? But you'd have to be much more specific than that, saying like men in the Northwest. You basically starting with a massive chunk of people and getting it further in town into a really small segment at the end where you can target your products really effectively to a couple of people rather than saying like all men. Let's be really specific. Well, all men in the Northwest. All right. Well, or all men in the Northwest who are bold. All right. Well, okay. All men in the Northwest who are bold and like football. All right. Well, all men in the Northwest who are bold, who like football and are meat eaters. Right. All men. Can you see what I'm doing? And we make it into a really specific until we get to a really specific segment that we want to target. It depends on what the product is and things like that. And the final one is be targetable. Okay, so they have to have their own identity so that they can be promoted to. So it says like daytime TV. I need to be able to know what kind of person, what stereotype am I going for here. So if I'm going for one of the lads likes a pint, likes to go down the pub with his mates, and likes football, then I can target that person. Where would you do a target? If that's what you were going to do, if you were going to target people who like football, where would you do your advertising? Personally, do it on Sky Sports, because they're going to be watching it. Do it on channels that they tend to put on in pubs. Put it on near programs that this demographic like to watch, like Match of the Day or things like that, I imagine. I never understood that. Maybe you could help me. This shows my complete lack of manliness, I think, in this regard. But why would you watch a program that's just the highlights of something that you'd already watched? That's like watching, for me, that's like watching, Match of the Day for me is like watching, going to the cinema, because I like cinema, watching a movie and then watching another program afterwards that gets all the main bits of the film and discusses them. Like, I wouldn't watch that. I've already watched the movie. I don't need to watch it again. I don't need you to discuss it. I suppose you do review things and stuff like that, isn't it? But I don't understand that. It's just loads of millionaires kicking a ball around the field. Whatever you're into. The benefits of specialising a product or service for that segment must outweigh the costs of doing so, so making it financially worthwhile. So keep in mind in those three things. It must be recognisable, it must have a critical mass, it must be targetable. Basically, we need to have a segment of people that is not infinite, that is as specific as we can. We can use stereotypes to help us to an extent, because a lot of them are based on fact to some extent. But we've got to remember that we can't just go into anything. We've got the benefits of specialising a product, because if it's not financially worthwhile, just keep it to really broad products. Just make sure that the product that you make is really broad, and that, you know, like it's like toothpaste. Is there any point of specialising toothpaste, or is it better to just keep it to the same? It depends on how much it would take you to actually research and develop that product. I mean, there is specialist toothpaste, isn't there? There's Sensodyne and stuff like that, and whitening ones, although they don't seem to work, those. Anyway, so let's have a look at these ones. So we've got three different types of segmentation that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about demographic, geographic, and psychographic. Really, really easy ones to actually understand once you get them. You've just got to remember the words. So first of all, geographic, so where they live. All right, where the consumers live. Is it going to be? Let's talk about it really broadly. Is it rural or urban? First of all, okay, you can be really specific on this, but to begin with, is it in the middle of nowhere? Is it in the countryside, or is it in an urban situation? Now, think about the things that would affect that. Think about the things which we're going to have to think about if we're a company. If you are think about things like delivery, things like internet access, infrastructure, things like that. If you are Amazon, it's going to be a lot different advertising to an urban situation. You know, being able to offer next day delivery or same day delivery or whatever it is, or the Highlands of Scotland in quite a rural location, because then you'd be thinking, well, we can't actually provide to this because it's going to be really out of our way to do it, and we can't, we don't have, it's not as easy to do it because we don't have the distribution centres and things like that. So keep in mind, it's not always as simple as it seems to do things like that. But when you're doing geographic, all about that person in that specific situation. So where the consumers live, the type of house they've got, because then we know if we've got a certain type of house, we can probably make an inference about socioeconomic group. So we can say, well, how much money is this person on? Do they own their own house? Do they, do they live in a really rough area, or is it a really walled area, really nice, surrounded by millionaires or something like that? Useful where buying patterns are influenced by region, so surfboards in Hawaii and things like that. So they wouldn't sell surfboards in the middle of like Durham city centre because there's no market for it. But in somewhere like Hawaii, even though it sounds obvious, of course they sell surfboards in Hawaii because Hawaii is a major place where people like surfing. Yeah, but why is it? Well, it's because they've got waves there. They've got loads of beaches. People go there specifically for that. If you were to try and sell surfboards on Blackpool Pier, you probably aren't going to be that successful, even though we have got waves, even though we have got sea. It's nowhere near as attractive to the potential people. So you've got to be thinking like the natural place will predispose it. If I was to say to you, what kind of product would you geographically aim at Blackpool, I'd be saying like tat shops, takeaways, bars, restaurants, pubs and clubs. I'd be saying, like arcades, that kind of stuff, because that's what Blackpool is. That's what it's known for, It was going to be, wasn't it? They were talking about a super casino that didn't actually happen, but they were talking about trying to make it like the Las Vegas of the UK. But the problem with Las Vegas is that during the day, and it's dead. It's like it's all glitz and glamour and sparkly lights at night. Very much like Blackpool when you've got the Golden Mile, haven't you, and with all the lights and everything. But when they're all turned off, it's quite depressing. So drawback: consumer tastes are becoming more uniform across geographic boundaries. So one thing that's becoming more and more difficult for us to use now is geographic segmentation, because a lot of people are quite similar. So even if you used to be able to say, well, they live in the northwest, so they're probably going to have less money than in the in London way, down south. So we're going to aim this at them because they've got that. It's more difficult because we've got access to the internet, because we've got access to such a wide range of products and services now. A lot of people are quite similar. So it's difficult to really segment them like we used to. All right. Now, next one, demographic. So demographic you might have heard of. We talk about demographics a lot, don't we, even though we're not talking about segmentation. Age, gender, social class, income, ethnicity or religion. This one is where we're just trying to figure out what kind of stereotype we're going for. What kind of person are you? So if we're talking about a Muslim woman from the south of England, I don't want to talk about the northwest all the time. It seems to be, my go-to thing. Then we would be able to specifically market a product to her. We wouldn't then we wouldn't go, well, the average consumer of Preston North End Football Club is a 25-year-old Muslim woman. Well, it probably isn't. There might be some 25-year-old Muslim women who really like Preston Football Club. I'm sure there is. I don't know why their ethnicity or their the religion aspect would make any difference. But in that regard, there is a difference, isn't there? Because there'll probably be a cultural difference. There might be things that you do on an average day that'll be different. And the fact that she's a woman will already predispose us to thinking she doesn't like football. So I'm not saying that it's completely correct, but you can see what I mean. It's some ways just seems a bit obvious that the average consumer for Preston Football Club is probably not a 25-year-old Muslim woman. It probably isn't. I'd be thinking it's probably, if I was going to go for anything, an 18 to 28 male. If we were to do that, so 18 to 28, I'd say age, gender, male, social class. A range of social classes, but I'd say middle class, lower to middle class. I'd say income decent or not. It doesn't. With this one, it's quite broad, isn't it? Because ethnicity or religion, I don't think it really makes an impact on this one because there's people from loads of ethnicities and religions who are into football, so you can't really say this one. But can you see what I mean? I'm trying to get really specific on that kind of thing, what kind of people it is. And interestingly enough, I'm picking examples which I don't know loads of detail about because I'm not into them. So you yourself watching this, you'll be able to tell me a lot more detail about them. Tell me about your products. Tell me about things that you like, that you think, I know exactly who this is aimed at because it's aimed at me. And I am, a 16-year-old woman from blah blah blah, and you can do it to yourself, can't you, essentially? So drawback: consumers tend to defy consumption patterns associated with the demographic groups. We're talking about thingy. Oh bloody hell, it's gone again. I'm doing well today, aren't I? We were talking about, what did I say? Stereotypes, that's the one. We were talking about stereotypes and not using them to always influence stuff, but the problem with this is people now know about stereotypes and they purposely try and go against those stereotypes. So if we're using demographic segmentation and then we've got people who are in those demographics who are purposely trying to not abide by those demographics to prove a point or to make themselves feel better or whatever it is that they're doing. I do it. I should be really into football, shouldn't I? Because I'm in the demographic that's really into football. But I'm not. And I think I'm not because I don't like the idea of it. So I'm purposely trying to defy a stereotype. I'm purposely trying to define what's expected of me and things like that. So if you've got people like me, which a hell of a lot of people are now, it makes it really difficult to segment like that, doesn't it? And the final one that we're going to talk about today is Psychographic. All right. Now, this is your lifestyle and your personality. Sports products aimed at those interested in sports. Chocolate ads, could they be depressive or energetic? Let's have a think about this. So, energetic or depressive? It's an interesting one, isn't it? When you eat chocolate, who's it really aimed at? Well, people eat chocolate because they're depressed or they're unhappy. So, should we aim it at those people who, want to make yourself feel better after a hard day at work? Buy some Galaxy. Want to relax because you've had such a hard day? Buy some Galaxy. Feeling a bit depressed? Buy some Galaxy. Or do we want to go with the energetic approach, like, oh, boost bar, are you really, really thing? Well, don't worry, you're energetic, you're a good looking person, you've got a good body, so don't worry about getting fat because, as part of a healthy lifestyle, have a Snickers, because all the lads are having one, we're all having football, we're all being healthy, we're all having a good time, have a Snickers. That's just the same product essentially, isn't it? I know there's variations on it, but it's both a chocolate product. But we're aiming at two different demographics just because of the lifestyle of the individual. Now, drawback for this one is difficult to collect data about beliefs and attitudes and expensive. People won't necessarily be honest with you about this kind of stuff. Do you really want to, bring people into it and actually tell them what you believe in this regard? A lot of people won't do it. So you've got to remember with this one that using demographics used to be a hell of a lot easier than it is now, and we've got to really rely on those stereotypes of people to be able to sell effectively to those, because the fact of we used to be able to do the research on them, but it's becoming harder and harder now since people started thinking for themselves a little bit more. To be honest, it used to be much easier than this. Okay, I'm not going to put these up. I'm going to put these up in the description so you can have a look at them afterwards, because we can't really do them on here. But I want you to just have a think off the top of your head. Alperson. Do you remember this one? Alperson. What's it called? Like caffeine bloody shampoo. So you might have seen it. There's an advert for it. These are all adverts. Who do you think Alperson is aimed at? I'm going to leave it to you. I'm going to let you have a look. I will put them in the things. But what about Waitrose? Who do you think Waitrose is aimed at? If you think about how would you segment it if you were to use your demographics factors, or would you use your psychographic factors? What would you use? What about Yorkie? Because there's a big one about Yorkie, isn't there? It's specifically aimed at a certain gender. Which gender are we talking about? Happy Eggs. Have a look at them. You might not have heard of them because it might not be aimed at you. And Aldi as well. So I've put some stuff up. I'll put them in the description of this, and you can have a go at them after the stream. Finishes. Okay. So, but have a think about your own as well. Think about products that you're into. Have a think about what demographics that you fit into. What stereotypes do you fit into? Because I think that there are, it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. It doesn't always have to be something that you think, well, actually, this is a really, really horrible thing that the stereotype. Well, stereotypes, as long as it doesn't offend you or it's not a negative stereotype, then what's the problem? It allows companies to more effectively market to you, which is good for everyone, really, doesn't it? It makes it cheaper for them, makes it better for you. Okay, so demographic, geographic, psychographic. So let's just go back through to them. So demographic, what is a demographic segmentation? Well, a demographic segmentation, if you remember, is your where they sort of. What was I saying? It's not where they live, is it? Because that's geographic. So, sorry, I've got Of course, it is demographics. As I said, I'm just not up to it this morning. I had a late night playing on my Xbox, and I've no qualms of saying this. I should have been more on it. Not my Xbox, my PlayStation. I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it is blowing me away. It is amazing, really nostalgic. It makes me feel really depressed because I'm not 11 anymore. I really loved being 11. It was a fantastic age. But let's just go through it really quickly. So demographics is your age, your gender, your social class, that kind of stuff. Income, yeah. Geographic is where you live, and you can be as specific as you can for these ones. And then your psychographic is your behavioural and your opinions, your attitudes towards something. The best thing we can do though is get all these things and put them together to make make this ideal consumer who we want to talk about. So what I do in class is I get everybody to stand up, and then I ask some crazy questions like, where does the ketchup sit in the fridge or in the cupboard? And if you say cupboard, sit down, and that's so there'll be half the room are stood up. Do you like bits in your orange juice, or do you like it smooth? If you like bits, sit down, and then some people sit down, and we do it until we've got like a couple of people left. And that is the that's ideal segmentation. So we've got our ideal consumer now because we know all about them. We know what their age is. We know what their sexual orientation is. We know what this is. But in terms of that, I don't say everybody who's gay or everybody who's straight sit down or whatever that is. I don't do that. But in terms of if you were doing it for a business, you would try and be as specific as you can, because it's no problem. It's not an issue. Having a product that's aimed at a gay person is totally fine. You're just segmenting them. Because there will be products that that gay people might need that the average straight person wouldn't. Vice versa, there will be something that a straight person wants. I can't think of what it would be off my head, but it's probably because I don't fit into the demographic of understanding that. You will know your own. I'm a gamer. I understand that. I'm a musician. I understand that. You will know your own. I'm not, a 50-year-old black woman from Manchester, so I don't understand the demographic perfectly. But that's why I'm saying that's why we stereotype to an extent. That's why we try and use them to help us influence our decision making and try and use them in a positive way if we can. So why choose target market segmentation? Well, targeted marketing is the big one. So it's trying to minimize cost, because if we target our marketing really specifically, then the likelihood of us being successful is a lot more, isn't it? So we can better serve customers' needs and wants if we know what the needs and wants are. If we know exactly what this kind of person wants, then hopefully we can satisfy you more effectively. Higher profits will inevitably come if you can do this all effectively, especially if you can do it better than your competitors, because you can say, well, actually, this demographic really like us more. Why do they like us more? Because we always cater to that demographic's needs. Opportunities for growth, we might understand that, look, well, actually, this demographic that we're into, they've actually just got into veganism. So why don't we do a vegan product? Or we actually need to do you see what I mean? There might be something else going on in that demographic that you think, well, that demographic lends itself really well to this as well. If I was to say you're going to aim at vegetarians, then the vegan thing might not be a bad idea. You might say, well, actually, vegetarians are probably more likely to go vegan than the average consumer. So if we have a product that is already vegetarian, then it might only take a couple of tweaks. Is it worth doing it for your demographic? Potentially, yeah. Sustainable customer relationships in all phases of the customer life cycle. So in terms of this is the life cycle of the sales, and we have the product life cycle as well, don't we? So sustainable customer relationship in all phases of it. So when we have this, you could have two lots, couldn't you? You could have sustainable customer relationships in the customer's life cycle. If you're going to do that, you could say, well, look, we want to be able to keep this person for as long as we can. We want to be able to sustain this person. Now, is it worth it to the business to be able to change their products to satisfy an older audience if they were a fan of yours to begin with? Not necessarily. It doesn't always translate well. It doesn't always say, well, they liked them when they were 15, so now that they're 70, they should still like them. It might not be worth it because demographics change, people change, so they might slip out of a demographic that's actually interested in you. Is it worth chasing them around? Potentially not. Sometimes it is. Sometimes products have done that, that different products for different age groups and things like that. I think Xbox and people like that have done it quite effectively. Bringing out more expensive ones and things like that. A lot of people think of video gaming for children, but I think it's definitely, if you were to say the average gamer now, I wouldn't say a child, and it used to be. Give it 15 years ago, everybody would say it was for children. So they have changed the way that they are, more sensibly, because my age group, like sort of 20 to 40 sort of age bracket, we have more money, so we can spend it on things, so it's better for it's easier to target us when we have our own cash than going for parents that might not have as much cash to buy stuff for the kids. Do you see what I mean? And also for the product life cycle as well, we need to be able to continuously do it. We want to be able to make sure that product does go into maturity phases. We want to make sure that product can continue doing it and we continue buying it. Stimulating innovation. We might have to, because it might require it to be a bit more changeable because of a demographic changing. Higher market share, hopefully, to get from that. So with these, practice your analysis. Explain how, therefore, could lead to whatever it is that you talk about. Remember, an AO3 chain, higher profits. how would you get higher profits? Well, you get higher profits from this, therefore this could lead to, yeah? You don't need to go crazy in the exam, but if you can show a nice steady stream of AO3, then it's more likely that you're going to get the marks for it, isn't it? Now, if we had something, we talked about product portfolios the other week. I think there's already a video on it, if I remember rightly, but think about all the different things that Kellogg's do. Think about all the different segments that these people go after. We've got Cornflakes, All Brand, Cocoa Pops, Crunchy Nut. We can probably do it really, really quickly, can't we? Who's Cornflakes aimed at? The average consumer. It's the average person, isn't it? It's not really aimed at, but it's aimed at probably more adults than children. All Brand is aimed at older people. Cocoa Pops is aimed at children. Crunchy Nut is aimed at, sort of, I'd probably say children up to sort of young adults. I don't even know what Ancient Legends is. Crave is aimed at kids or people who like particularly chocolate stuff, don't they? Rice Krispies kids, Special K, women, sort of middle-aged women. Can you see? We're going through them, aren't we? And we're able to do it. Biscuits and all these different things. Can you see what they do, though? They get all different segments. They don't just go for just women, just men, just this ethnicity, thus just this religion, whatever it is. They're trying to be able to satisfy lots of different segments so they can benefit from all the money that's tied up in these segments as well. Couple of examples, I will put them in the description for this one, just because I can't show you videos on here, but this one was about Bic for her. This was a a pen, pens for women. Pink they were, purple pens. And Bic, the company, tried to segment by gender. It didn't really work for pens because it just really naffed off people. We're talking about not negatively using stereotypes, but stereotyping women in this regard was seen as quite negative. It was a bit of a silly thing to do for them. But then we've got the, we already talk about this, Diet Coke, Coke Zero. It's crazy, this one, isn't it? The how obvious it is that the Diet Coke advert is aimed at women, the Coke Zero is aimed at men. It's the same product, it's a diet drink. Why do we not call it diet? Because women like the word diet on things, men don't like the word diet on products. Apparently that's what the research shows us. So what do? We get the same products, we make it a bit more flashy, we put zero on it, or max, like Pepsi Max, and we make a product which is targeted more specifically at that demographic. And then we've got, I don't know if you can hear that in the background, I hope you can't, the bin men are here. And then we've got Lego for girls as well at the bottom, which you'd be saying, well, isn't all Lego? How do you? It's not really aimed at any demographic, is it? Girls, and they say Lego, and you'd be thinking, well, actually it is. Yeah, it's mainly aimed at boys. They were saying that the fact that even though they don't specifically aim it at boys, less girls played with Lego. So they did this thing called Lego Friends. It actually worked really well because they were up in the firing line for this, weren't they? Like in terms of people getting angry at them, but it actually they managed to turn it around well. Lego is such an amazing company for stuff like that. So stuff like this, evaluate the importance and impact of segmentation to the business and its customers, drawbacks for the business, impact on customers, fantastic opportunities to get them more specific, satisfy those customers more effectively and things like this. Print stick, a pink print stick, what about for children? What about for little, and inevitably I'm going to say, aren't I, what about for little girls? Because that's the demographic that we're thinking that this is aimed at. It's too obvious, isn't it? Why is it not aimed at lads? Well, it's not, is it? You can see that because lads aren't the stereotypical person who's going to like pink products. So, and yeah, we can get into the whole, they shouldn't be or they should be, but we're not talking about that today, are they? We're talking about business theory, which business theory dictates we should use effectively segmentation to be able to choose our marketing and things more effectively. If I was to say to you now, okay, well, let's say you're completely against using stereotypes in marketing and things like that, and the ASA, actually, the Advertising Standards Agency, have just put in a law that you're not going to be able to use gender stereotypes anymore. So that'd be an interesting thing to see what they do with that. But at the same token, if I was to say to you, okay, you've got this product, it's going to be aimed at women, or aimed at men, or aimed at kids, try and market that at them without using any stereotypes, and see how you struggle, because it's not always got to be a negative thing. We can use it demographically. We've got to understand what the average, what's this person like, what they fit into a group of people, don't they? So these people like to do this, they're into this kind of stuff, you know. What if this person likes Dragon Ball Z, then they probably like this. If this person likes Xbox, they're probably going to like PlayStation, or they're probably not going to like PlayStation, or whatever, yeah? So you've got a case study here. Now, I know it's not brilliantly, thing on here. It's not brilliant sort of size. It's quite difficult to read. So we'll just have a little read through it, okay? Because you're going to get a case study in the exam. Let's have a little read, okay? So it says tomato ketchup has been part of the Heinz product portfolio since 1876. Just 7 years later. 7 years after Henry J. Heinz started the company. The famous Heinz label is instantly recognisable the world over, and the product quality is central to the continued success of the company. The sales revenue of the Heinz tomato ketchup is huge. The Heinz website tells us that we use enough tomatoes to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every day to make enough ketchup for all our fans. Nonetheless, it is constantly seeking new ways to maintain its prominent position through the market research and market segmentation, always looking to add new ketchup products to the range listed below. So, products available in the UK in 2006, so obviously it's a bit of an old case study, this, isn't it? But so we've got Heinz ketchup top down, we've got Heinz ketchup glass bottle, we've got organic tomato ketchup, chili flavoured ketchup, curry flavoured ketchup, hot and sizzling barbecue flavoured ketchup, original barbecue flavoured ketchup. So a wide range. I'd say if it's barbecue flavoured, it's not ketchup, but I don't know what dictates what a ketchup is. Packaging has always been an important part of the marketing mix and is now the famous glass bottle, which has been patented in 1882. In 1987, the groundbreaking, highly convenient plastic Heinz tomato ketchup bottle was launched, and in 2003, Heinz decided to turn the Heinz tomato ketchup on its head, revolutionising the way that sauce was served. The latest development in the Heinz tomato ketchup top-down bottle is the new design, which has the classic bottle shape, but with a cleaner top and better pouring control. To satisfy what Heinz calls the saucy traditionalists, the classic glass bottle will still remain on sale. The sales of the original tomato ketchup recipe currently make up around 94% of Heinz overall ketchup sales. Organic tomato ketchup accounts for around 4%, and the remainder for it is from other variants. And breathe. So you're going to expect it to read through that. And how long does that took me? About a minute to read through that, a minute and a half, something like that. You're going to have to get good. You're going to have to get fast at reading these case studies and taking them in. You know, when we say highlight stuff in class and people highlight the whole thing, there's no need. Just take out the salient points. How do you know what the salient points are? Read the question before you read the case study. So let's have a look at the question, okay? So he says, with reference to the case, explain what is meant by market segmentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go have a look at how you would answer these. So first of all, I would be looking at how they have segmented the market. And we know in this one, with reference to the case, so it's got to have application in it, explain what it is. That's a definition, isn't it? So we've just got AO1, AO2. It's only 4 marks. So we just need 2 things, essentially. We need two things which link to market segmentation to explain it correctly. Linking to the case, linking to Heinz. So what will we be getting the content marks from? Where will this come from? Well, the first one, you've got to, literally define market segmentation for me, wouldn't it? So it's segmenting your market into smaller subgroups of consumers that have similar characteristics. You can use geographic, psychographic, behavioural, demographic factors to do this with. In this case, Heinz have decided to go with the type of people who like to use different types of shape of bottle, either the original glass bottle for the traditional people, maybe older people, and newer people and children might like the newer bottle, more plastic, the plastic squeezable bottle. Or you've got the different tastes in terms of barbecue or original. Yeah, there you go, done. So you've got your think about the bottle, where you're talking about the type of the psychographic things that will go with that, but you're also going with the different tastes as well, physical tastes in terms of barbecue versus original, yeah? So why might they use segmentation? So it says here, for a 6 marker, what do we think this might be asking us to do? So in the answer, you need to show 2 arguments. So because it's a 6 mark question, isn't it? We need AO1, AO2, AO3. Let's just have a look at that question and see if we can pick out those AOs. Why might Heinz, so we know that there's AO2, why might Heinz attempt to identify different market segments? Well, it's got to have, it's mentioned market segments, so it's got to have some AO1 in it. Why might the attempt to identify different market segments? And realistically, because there is the explanation in there, it's not as simple as identify something or explain something. It doesn't mention that. So it's mentioned the word identify here, but it's talking about it for identify the arguments, essentially, rather than just identify the thing. It's talking about identify the arguments, isn't it? So that's why we've got that AO3 in there. So why market segmentation is good for Heinz, making sure that you apply each argument to a specific product or company or market, in this case Heinz, and bring some analysis into each argument. We need that cause and effect, knock-on effect. Here is a model argument. Okay, so if you get struggle with these, I know that people struggle with these things. It's not easy to do. So let's just have a look at these. So I've broken it down into red, green, and blue for you. One reason why Heinz might attempt to identify a different market segment is that it allows them to target marketing efforts at a specific segment. This allows them to stress the particular product features and benefits of the products which are most relevant to that segment. For example, the squeezy top-down bottle may be of particular use to families with young children, as it's less dangerous than a glass bottle. By identifying this group of consumers as a segment, they can really stress the usefulness of that feature to them, which will encourage more sales. Perfect. AO1, AO2, AO3. Can you see how it works? And if we wanted to do some AO3 chaining, if we wanted to do some more AO3, we could say, hopefully encourage more sales. This in turn would lead to more revenue, which would in turn lead to you being able to invest more in the business. Blah, blah, blah. You see how it works? We just take it to that next step. So this is how I would do it. If I was going to say, right, I'm going to break it down into people really, really struggling to make an argument, or this is how we would do it. So it says, pick a point from the list of why a business would use segmentation. Remember, to make it easier for marketing, to make it cheaper to basically to get your message out there, because you can be more confident that the right people are going to listen, to hopefully encourage more sales, to hopefully get more target market, things like that. Explain your point and use the frame, this means that. Okay, so if you're one of these people who really struggles with your exam technique, use it. Then follow it with Heinz. Actually put it into example with them. You know, if you get stuck, just go back to the case study and have a look. They made it quite simple for you. And then finally, give the impact. The impact is your AO3. The impact this leads to. All right. If you can just remember those words, what it is, why it is, and what does it lead to. That's essentially it. So what it is, why it is, what does it lead to? That's probably your good, sort of applied to Heinz. You've got your AO1, AO2, AO3 there, haven't you? Okay. So, why segment? We've talked about this, won't we? So, feel free to go through this. If you get stuck, if you know you need to do a little practice on this, feel free to go back through and have a little go on this. So, target your marketing, better serving customers, higher profits. We talked about these. Pick one of them and go through the situation. It's a really nice little activity to do. You know, just practice your AO1, AO2, AO3. And finally, how has the car market used market segmentation techniques? Because remember, in your exam, you're going to be given a random bit of data. You're going to be given a random industry to talk about, which you might not know about. Some people go in and know all about it. Like in my final degree exam, our final exam was about why Disney bought Marvel for a lot more than it was technically worth. That was brilliant because I was interested in it. I already knew a little bit about it anyway. I did go and do some research beforehand because it was more of an open book exam. So they told you what the question was going to be beforehand, and you got to do some research. But you might get in an exam and not know what the hell the exam, not know anything about the industry that they're talking about. They don't tend to pick really obscure ones, but sometimes they do. But so make sure you read it. Make sure that you try and go and have a look at the news. Go and try and understand a few different industries, because it's going to really help in that exam situation for you. That. So how has the car market used market segmentation techniques? Can you think of any companies or models that have targeted specific segments? To what extent do you think this has helped the car industry develop? There's 3 really good questions there, isn't there? And these are ones that you can definitely practice with. But have a think about it. You've got family cars, you've got off-road cars, you've got, first-time cars, things like the Fiat 500 and stuff like that. You can tell me who these are segmented at. What about two-seater cars? They're not going to be aimed at families, are they? What about family cars? What does a family car look like? What about Tesla going for that new, sort of expensive model cars with the electric cars? People who are more bothered about, saving the world and stuff like that. There's a range of things here, isn't there, that you already know. But if you're not really into cars, I'm not specifically into them, but I understand a little bit about them. That's what you need to do. You need to go out and understand a lot about a range of different industries. If you want to be ready for this exam, that's the really, really vital thing that you can do. That is have a look at the news consistently and things like that. And that, ladies and gents, brings us to the end of this. I'm still looking at that thing. It's bad, that, isn't it? It doesn't hurt. So we're going to have a little look at the news today. I hope that's been useful for you. Not a massively difficult idea. Demographic, psychographic. What's the other one? Can you remember? Demographic, psychographic, behavioural, or psychographic and behavioural. And what's the last one? Geographic. They're the big ones, all right. So geographic, demographic, behavioural, or psychographic is what we think about. So where they live, what their values are, and what the kind of person they are is essentially how we break these up. Okay. So let's jump straight into the news. Have a little look at what's going on in this big world of news today. I want to have a look. Surely they must have mentioned it, because I saw something crazy yesterday. No, it's not on here, I don't think. I'm going to show you on here. Oh, no, not Netflix like that. Netflix. Here we are. I don't know what this. I don't know where we're going off here in terms of look at the state of this website. All these adverts. This is what I don't like to do. But this is what I was reading the other day. So let's have a little look at it. It says Netflix shares are on track to close at a record high on Wednesday as Wall Street ratchets up their estimates and price targets ahead of the company's first quarter earnings. Now, what they're saying is, with the world hunkering down at the home of the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, movie theatres and other entertainment venues closed, and professional and college sports entirely shut down, there are many turning to streaming video services for entertainment and like Netflix. So what's actually happened is, in terms of market capitalization, that's when you add up all the value of the shares, that gives you the true value of big PLC companies. Netflix is now more powerful in terms of they're actually worth more in Netflix than Disney. Think of that. That's insane. That's really mental, that. Because think of what Disney are, okay? We're not talking about Disney Plus. We're talking about Disney the company. We're talking about Disney the massive conglomerate. We're talking about Disney the Disneyland people. We're talking about Disney the Star Wars people, the Avengers people in terms of Marvel. We're talking about Mickey Mouse. We're talking about... it's insane, isn't it? National Geographic. There's absolutely also some. What we're saying is Netflix is actually worth more in terms of market capitalization. Now, in real terms, they won't continue to be like this. It's because at the moment, I said, didn't I, when this started, this was the time to invest in places like Netflix because they were going to go through the roof. I would never have thought that would have happened at all. It says here the company projected its first quarter revenue of 5.7 billion, profits of £1.66 a share, $1.66, and 7 million net new subscribers. It's gone up to. They thought it was going to be. They thought it was going to be £1.66, but it's actually gone up to, I think it was £495 a share or something crazy like this. I'm trying to find it. Was just they made it so much simpler on these. I'm surprised the BBC aren't talking about it though. But anyway, yeah, feel free to have a look at it. But it says that people are, buying up using Netflix a lot more. So they're actually it's pushed the value up past Disney, which is absolutely insane. Fair play to them. Let's have a look at this one. It says, coronavirus has robbed me of my dream job. Back to the BBC now, a little bit more accessible stuff, which is good. It says, coronavirus has definitely cost me, at least temporarily, my dream job. A 24-year-old student from Dublin this summer after graduation looked exciting. She had internships and job interviews lined up at music labels and events companies she'd been trying to break into. But then the coronavirus hits, offers were withdrawn one by one. My heart was set on starting out, so having that taken away from me was absolutely gutting. I'm hoping to get some experience and really kickstart my career. She also put off plans to study a master's degree in either London or Belfast over money worries. Coronavirus means a lot of her paid work is being pushed back. It's quite possibly robbed me of my dreams for 2020, but obviously someone's health has to come first. Everybody's health has to come first. I want to remain as positive as I can. This is a problem, isn't it? This is and it's not just her. It's going to be a wide range of people, and it's not just young people either that are going to be affected by it. This is your stakeholders. This is what happens when we make big decisions, doesn't it? Because this is what we have to save people. Yes, it is the greater good in this respect, but to think that people like this aren't going to get a massive impact on it, to think that it's going to be brilliant for everyone. Look at the fact that we're doing this now. Look at what impact it's had on us. It's absolutely insane. I'm not at work. People aren't at college. People aren't at work. It's insane. It's absolutely insane that the things that are going on. So this is a real world example of when it's affecting different stakeholder groups, doesn't it? In which case of employees or potential employees as well. Global economy could face deep double recession. I think Tank warns of two impending. Let's have a look at this one. It says local pharmacies face cash crisis. We love a cash flow one, don't we? We love a cash flow story. The last month has been the hardest in my 35 years in pharmacy. He runs 2 pharmacies in Rhondda, in South Wales, and has demanded an increase massively since lockdown has not been good for business. That's because the wholesale price of medicine has shot up, cutting margins and putting financial pressures on. Meanwhile, longer hours and twice as many deliveries have meant higher staff costs. Thousands of independent community pharmacies around the current country are facing a cash crush. The net result could be closures, leaving communities in the country with no local chemists. This is a crazy one, isn't it? This is what happens, yeah. It starts affecting people. You wouldn't think that would be a massive issue, would you? You wouldn't think that would be, you'd think all pharmacies are doing absolutely fantastically. Well, not necessarily, because they've got to be able to pay staff. They've got to be able to maintain that cash flow. They've got to be able to do things. And other things like, supplier prices going up and things like that. And people losing their money means, losing ability to access finance and stuff like that is going to massively impact on them. It's not unreasonable to think all that. It says here as well, though, let's have a look at this final one for today. Because this is what we really care about, isn't it? Major UK takeaway chains start to reopen. This is the 16th of April 2020. It says 3 major takeaway chains in the UK have announced limited reopening programmes after closing during the quarantine. Burger King, KFC and Pret a Manger. Pret? Why bother? It's not like someone's desperate for a Pret a Manger, is it? It's crazy that. It's like somewhere you go. It's a very, very high-end place if you don't know, but it's like a coffee place, essentially. I don't even know if they sell coffee, but it's very, very high-end. It's where you go and get like a baguette or something from. It's not like something you go, oh, God, Pret a Manger. Yeah, I've got to go desperately run out and get a Pret a Manger. Are opening certain restaurants around the country for delivery only. Pret a Manger delivery. This shows this isn't aimed at my demographic. I don't know. I'm not in the right socioeconomic group for Pret a Manger. I'm not that kind of person. So this shows I might be completely wrong. You might be going, oh, that's dead unreasonable. Of course we get it delivered. But government guidelines state that while restaurants and pubs have to close, they can prepare food for collection or delivery. The chains have decided to temporarily close. The lockdown took effect. Burger King will reopen its restaurants, 2 in Bristol, 1 in Coventry and 1 in Swindon. Staff will wear their masks and gloves, stringent cleaning measures. The restaurant will also donate 1,000 meals a week to staff. We want to demonstrate the appreciative everyone at Burger King of the UK is for NHS staff. Do you Burger King? Do you really want to do that? Or are you trying to do a cash grab and trying to get some money because you're probably worried about your cash flow forecast? I agree, KFC said it's opened 11 UK restaurants in the past week for delivery only with a limited menu. Aldershot, Birmingham, Glasgow, Ipswich, London, Manchester, Portsmouth, Stockport, and Tamworth. Good old Tamworth. I love Tamworth. There's nothing in Tamworth. I've been to Tamworth. There's no there. There's a bowling alley actually. The fast food chain said it's donated thousands of meals from all our open restaurants to those in the front line, including the NHS and key workers in partnership with Deliveroo. And we will continue to do each week whilst the situation continues. KFC said it's decided to close temporarily on the 23rd of March with the well-being of our teams and guests in mind. What's this one? Pret a Manger will open 10 shops, 10 shop kitchens near London hospitals. This allows us to get our supply chain up and running to donate food to the homeless charities, and we'll be donating 7,000 additional meals per week to the homeless charity partners. Now, this is a good thing, isn't it? I know I had a pop at them, but that's really good. I think we need to pull together in times like this, don't we? It's not fair that we are, come on. If these businesses can afford to do that, then they should be doing it, shouldn't they? That's really, really good. What about homeless people in this time? They've been sort of dealt a duff hand anyway, haven't they? We need to help them out. I think my suggestion for this, Mr. Businessman's suggestion, is while schools and that are closed, let homeless people sleep in them. As long as they're reasonable and not going to trash the place, which I don't think the average homeless person's a, very evil person or anything like that. They're just down on the luck, Some have mental health issues, some have drug addiction, things like that. It could be any number of reasons why people are going to be on the street. But this is an opportunity for us to be kind to each other, isn't it? An opportunity for us to get out there and help people. And while we've got these public buildings that aren't being used, let people use them. Because it's okay when it's nice weather, but even being at nice weather, you don't want to be out all the time, do you? Homeless people being out in the baking sun, they've not got sun cream and stuff like that. It's not fun. Okay, we're going to end there today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you are well. I hope you are staying well and staying safe during this crazy time, and not scratching your face like me. We're going to continue on today. I will be releasing another little video later on today for your delectation. And I might just go and have a nap now, as it is Easter still, and we are, going to enjoy having a little break. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me. I will see you soon. Peace.